As you listen, consider what it means to actually remain master of your fate and captain of your soul, even when you're faced with potentially overwhelming challenges. And think of the quiet courage, those that you know that are, in fact, right now living with long term illness or pain, perhaps even you yourself and others that are close to you and close to home. How important it is to remain unconquered. And hopefully, this poem can serve as an inspiration for you and them as it has for millions of others over the 150 years that it's been in existence. So now we're going to be reading the poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black is the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade. And yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. So now welcome back to our journey through classic poetry. After exploring Kipling's If, that paternal roadmap to facing life's trials, we have turned now to Henley's Invictus. And I want you to consider something. What if this is not just another inspirational poem, but much more than that? A voice of someone looking back, someone who has already walked through and is walking through Kipling's gauntlet of if and has emerged and is emerging scarred, but unbroken. This was written while Henley was hospitalized, as I mentioned at the beginning. He was facing a potential second amputation. And Invictus carries the weight of lived experience rather than hopeful preparation that we saw in If. Written by a 25-year-old who was suffering from tuberculosis of the bone, he had had his left leg partially amputated at 12 and had been told now he may lose his right leg. Notice how the poem moves from darkness to defiance, out of the night that covers me, to I am the master of my fate. And this is not just wishful thinking on his part. This is testimony from the battlefield. I mean, it's a battle with what was generally considered at that time a death sentence, rather, in 1875. I want you to wrestle with those final lines. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Can they be true? Can anyone actually claim mastery over their destiny? Henley's body was failing him when he wrote those words. Do you think he was deluding himself? Or had he in fact discovered something profound about the difference between what happens to us and how we choose to respond? Do you know someone, perhaps you do, that's faced or is facing with chronic illness or pain, doing it with great courage, may even be yourself? Henley went on to live another 28 years after writing this poem. He became editor of the Scots Observer from 1889 to 1894, and he published many of Kipling's early works, and he actually became a friend of his. He also struck up a lasting friendship with Robert Louis Stevenson, and in that role he had considerable influence on Victorian literature. Proof, I think, of his ability to really become the master of his fate in the face of what were really great odds, that tuberculosis sentence. You may find it interesting, incidentally, that although the poem was written in 1875, it actually didn't receive the title Invictus until 1900, when it appeared in a collection of poems under that title. Now, the universal and timeless appeal of this statement of courage found expression in the impact it had on Nelson Mandela, both during his years of imprisonment and afterwards. His reliance on that poem gave it an iconic stature for many of those who look to him for strength in facing challenges today. And it was captured in the movie Invictus about his life and President Obama's use of the closing lines of the poem to conclude his eulogy at Nelson Mandela's funeral. So I'd like to hear your comments on this period of history, and maybe we can have a discussion on it, especially if this happens to be how you yourself became aware of the poem for the first time. In these and other contexts, the poem continues to resonate globally as a symbol of perseverance in the face of adversity, such as its use in the Invictus Games for wounded veterans. And it remains a reminder that all of us can face our challenges in life with a resilient dignity and moral courage. Now, in our next reading, we turn from quiet endurance to something very different, a wild and grimly funny tale from the Yukon Gold Rush. Robert Service's The Cremation of Sam McGee. Now, it may seem like simply a tall tale, but behind the dark humor lies a deeper message about how we face the unthinkable. I hope you'll join me for that poem, which was a favorite of mine when I was young. In addition, you may not be aware, but his service as a volunteer ambulance driver in World War I led to a somewhat lesser known and darker period of poems, so we're going to be discussing that sort of surprising period in his life next time. And finally, don't forget that we're going to be awarding a copy of 101 famous poems to one of our subscribers after our fourth reading. So please comment. We want to have an involvement of our listeners. Hit the like button and don't hesitate to subscribe if in fact you're enjoying this series of readings and comments. Love to have you do that, obviously. And as always, be sure to stay healthy and by all means, remain engaged.